So you're the catalyst behind company sales that grew from 2 million to 100 million, and you saved the family business from collapse. You find yourself today as managing director of the environmentally and socially responsible powerhouse brand Nature's Organics. You're a recipient of the Medal of Order of Australia, and most impressively, it was for your service to the community through philanthropy. Welcome to the Hidden Philanthropist, Justin Dowel.
Thank you.
Mate, I guess the easiest way to do this is to start at the start. Nature's Organics, a household name for all the right reasons. It was a business that all stemmed from your father Terry's vision. Your old man was a boy from the suburbs of Melbourne developing a range of leading environmentally minded cleaning and personal care lines such as Earth's Choice, Cove, OC Natural, and as I look behind me today, a huge range of other products that you now supply. I would imagine you've always had this business around you from a young kid. How did it shape you growing up, and what was life like for a young Justin growing up with an old man running a business like this?
Well, I was always in trouble, obviously, because the old man was never around. He was always at work. So it was pretty difficult for my mum because she had to raise four of us, and Dad wouldn't get home most nights until, 9, 10, 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
And that's what he had to do to build the foundation for the business that we sort of are today.
And it's a business of over 50 years now from its original establishment. What were the early days of the business like for the old man?
Tough, very tough.
Yeah.
As I said, he'd just work crazy hours, doing whatever he had to. When he started, he built his own filling lines, own machinery, own aerosol fillers and all those sort of things. He was just, and then he does all his own formulating and everything. It was just...
So a really hard worker.
Oh yeah, just nothing like it. Yeah.
And I guess we'll get to how that, looks now for you coming into the business, because with what you've done, obviously you're equally as hard a worker. You've come in here, you've gone from the bottom to the top. Were you an academic as a kid?
Absolutely not. No.
No?
The opposite of that.
What were you, a troublemaker?
So much so that Mum and Dad put me in a tech school rather than a high school because they didn't think I'd be suited to, high school life. But, I was sort of just everyday kid doing the stuff that they do, getting in trouble and all those sort of things. And I remember Dad sat me down one day and he said, listen, you need to turn over a new leaf because the path you're going down's the wrong one, and that's not what we want for you. And so that I got expelled from my second school, I think. This was in year 9 or something, for being naughty. I was never bad, I was just naughty, and that was the problem. And so I went to work for him for a few months when I was about 15, and I said, you know what, I need to go back to school and figure out what I'm going to do. And I did that to year 11 and said, right, I'm ready to leave school now. It's boring. So I went and got a job at warehouse sales, selling electrical goods and brown goods, and had a really good employer, Alan Turnbull. Taught me all about people, selling to people and all those sort of things. And that sort of steered me on my new path. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd actually read somewhere that your old man didn't want you to come into the family business.
No, I used to beg him.
Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. When I was working at warehouse sales till I was about 21, and on a few occasions, I started there at 17, I'd go and see him after work, and I'd say, all right, I'm ready to come work here now. Come on. And he'd say, no, you're not ready yet. No, not ready yet. And I was getting increasingly frustrated, and I was doing exceptionally well at warehouse sales. I think I was, the youngest person that was ever paid a full-time wage, and I was in their top 10 of 400 sales guys or whatever they had. And I had the most profit and sales out of every person in our store and so on. So I sort of proved that I could do that. And then when Dad got ripped off by a potential equity partner, came in and stripped all the money out of the business and ran off with it and put him in a pretty bad way for a few years. And as they were trading out of that, they sort of realised they needed to drive sales and so on. So when I was 21, he said, all right, you can come and work for us now. But I didn't go in sales. I went out in the factory again because I love the factory.
By this stage, you're not only a proven rat bag, but you're a proven performer in sales.
Yeah. I wasn't a rat bag then anymore. I pretty much straightened up. And I went into compounding, mixing shampoos, conditioners, laundry liquids, and then I went into production and sort of overseeing that, and really gave me a good grounding. And I always worked in the factory on school holidays and all those sort of things, so I sort of had a fairly good understanding of it all. But I spent that few years really grinding myself and grounding myself in the business to understand it completely. And I think that's what Dad's sort of vision was. He needs to understand all of the business if he's ever going to run it. There's no point just going in sales and not having any understanding of production and all those sort of things.
So, I mean, it's evident now that you're at the top and you're doing an incredible job, but that's not where you started. You did mention that before, but this has been a real journey for you, hasn't it? I mean, you literally started out on the factory floor and worked your way up.
Yeah, that was 1991. Started there and sort of took over production in 93, I think, 94. And then just expanded, then went into sales in 93 as well. And then we're sort of selling more than we could produce. So I'd be selling during the day to Coles and Woolies and Franklin's, and then running production at night. So I'd be doing 40, I think my record was 40 hours straight production, working without a rest. And that's how busy we were. And it was my problem. I created the sales problem, so I thought I couldn't let Woolworths or Coles or anyone down. So, if you run out of stock, they'll just remove your product from shelf. So, yep. I had my wife, my friends, whoever I could get to come and help me running filling lines and so on, producing shampoo, because I couldn't ask Dad to do it every day. It was too much for him, and he'd already done his lifetime of hard work. So I thought it's my turn to put in, and that paid off.
So you're obviously a natural born workhorse. But as well as that, as well as the hard work, there's obviously a natural skill set there to be able to take the sales from where it was to where it is now. Is that a natural entrepreneurialism within you, or is that something you learned at your first job where you got your first gig in sales?
Yeah, well, it's just picking apart. Yeah, I suppose understanding your product and your competition's product, understand what you offer versus what they do, and convincing the retailer why they need your product over theirs. And for us, it was always about sustainability, natural products, environmental products. But back in the 90s, when I try and sell that sort of stuff, they'd say, people don't want to buy that. People don't want to see their shampoo, things like that, because we're in PET, recycled plastic bottles, and, we're probably, 20, 30 years ahead of ourselves. But it sort of worked eventually. It took us a long time to get the support of Woolworths and Coles, but once we did,
And did the potential pending collapse of the family business drive you pretty hard as well? Like, did you see now that it was your time to step up and do your bit? Like, I mean, that would have been a major driving force as well.
Yeah, well, seeing the stress that it put Mum and Dad under, and I think it happened in '88, and they spent 3 years in receivership and traded out of it, and the receivers didn't want them there, but they just kept persisting, and Dad wouldn't give up. So they had no choice. They had to work with him. Yep. And because it wasn't any fault of his own that they went into receivership, it was because they were ripped off. And, so I thought, well, Dad sort of said to me, we sell $200,000 a month. We need to sell $300,000 a month to make this business work. Go and sell it. Took me up to Franklin's a few times and showed me, the ropes. And then it was, all right, it's your job now.
Big expectation for a young fella to make it happen.
Yeah, it was hard going to Woolworths for the first time. I think I was, 23 or whatever it was, and had no idea how they worked. And luckily I had some really, really good buyers, and one particularly Ming Chu. He was a buyer at Safeway at the time. And he said, well, I'm going to have to show you how to do all this, new line forms and paperwork and promotional programs and all that sort of stuff. Because and then some of the other buyers at Coles and Franklin's were fantastic as well. And with Coles, we got into Coles with Jeff Kennett. We went to a business forum that Dad made me go to that I didn't want to go to, that he was speaking at. And he was asking, any potential businesses if they had any issues and all those sort of things. And I said to Dad, I'm going to say something, because these, taxi drivers were standing up complaining about little things or whatever, and he goes, don't you dare. And I said, yep, I'm going to. So I put my hand up, and Jeff saw me and said, all right, what can I do for you, young man? And I said, well, we're all about supporting and building Australian business. We're a small Australian shampoo company and detergent company, and and we don't have deep pockets to get ourselves into Coles. Can you help us out? And then the next day he set up a meeting with the CEO, Peter Bartels at the time. And I was in there with Jeff Kennett presenting our products to the CEO of Coles.
Not a bad sales rep to have by your side on the day.
Yeah, we got in the meeting and Jeff turned around to Peter and said, well, he took a seat at we went up right upstairs into their top board meeting or whatever, boardroom. And Jeff says, I'm sitting here and I'm not leaving until these products are on your shelves. So it was really good.
And I guess this is probably a question that answers itself, but in a generational business like this, something I always ask about people that are successful is, do they have a mentor? Your old man, your mentor?
The thing is my mum and dad are polar opposites. As far as my dad's visionary, risk-taking, he would do anything, but where mum is very conservative and so I got to learn from both. So mum would always run the books and manage the accounts and all those sort of things. So I got to learn from her the importance of making sure we have a good balance sheet, that we can pay our creditors on time and all those sort of things. And then got the benefit of obviously Dad's, pioneering ability and skills and just being able to see what he needs to do. So
you must read my mind, because my next question was, your father's obviously has been a huge influence.
Yep.
What was your mum like growing up, and did the business and the stress and the opportunity have the same impacts on your siblings that it did on you?
I was always a naughty boy or the problem child for mum, so I didn't make her life that easy. Because, but in saying that, I always thought it was my dad that was the one that I wanted to impress, but it was probably in the end mum more so.
Yep.
My siblings were always very well behaved and well mannered, and Rod was a great kid and all those sort of things.
So
but
you were the black sheep.
I was the black sheep of the family. Yep. But
have your siblings come along with you for the ride in Nature's Organics?
They've supported sort of everything I do, and they're always telling me how grateful and appreciative they are of the work that I put into the company and so on. And my brother still works in the business and does a great job. My sister Shirley, up till about 5 or 6 years ago, would do all our graphic design and so on. She did a brilliant job. She did that for about 25 years. And my other sister Nat used to do our marketing and so on, but she sort of moved into promoting veganism and all those sort of things and plant-based living and so on. That's her passion. Yep.
So we've sort of worked out a bit of the journey on how you arrived at where you are today. You're the managing director. You're at the top of the tree. No one has a better understanding of this company than you. What is Nature's Organics, broad brush? What do you do? What do you sell? Why are you better than everyone else?
Back sort of in the day, everyone expects to pay more for environmental products, and our philosophy's always been, let's save the money and save the planet at the same time. Why should they pay more? If we can produce as efficiently or more efficiently than our competition, then we can offer great quality, sustainable products at lower prices, and that's generally what you'll see with most of the Earth's Choice range and our shampoos.
You're at the forefront of that though, weren't you? I mean, you were doing this back in the early 90s, well before it was trendy or a good brand push to be seen to be doing the right thing. I mean, you took this on early days, didn't you?
Yep.
This obligation or responsibility.
Yeah, and that's all Dad's vision. He started that, when he had his motorbike accident back in the 50s or 60s and said, you know what, I need to look at more natural ways of living, and that went into how we can create our products, obviously.
Yeah. And what are your main products now?
So obviously our Earth's Choice dishwash range is probably our biggest range, followed with our laundry liquid, and in shampoos and conditioners we've got our new My Soda brand, OC Naturals, and Fruits. Fruits is our $2 shampoo, but you look at OC Naturals is probably more like a $7 or $8 shampoo for $3.50. My Soda is a $20 shampoo for $10. So we're not a greedy company. We don't need to make massive margins. We just need enough to survive and to reinvest in our business, and that's what we do.
And we'll talk about the impacts that COVID had on the business, because I know that had impacts on a heap of businesses, but you had incredible challenges with your business because there was so many different factors that had an impact on your business. Let's talk about that before we talk about where the company's at now. And I guess the exciting bit of what we're really here to talk about is the philanthropic work that both your father started and you've carried on the legacy of the responsibility of doing that. But how did COVID affect the business?
Obviously, we're struggling to get raw materials. Cost of raw materials going through the roof, and then the pallet shortage crisis, had a massive impact because we had to reduce all our run sizes, which compromised our efficiencies, increased our costs further. But raw materials were probably the single biggest thing. Some of our materials were going up 50 to 100%, and retailers would only take a 3 to 5% price increase. And so when you're selling stuff for $2 to $3, and most of probably 80% of our range is under $3, it made things very, very difficult. But we just had to grind our way through it, which we did.
Are you coming out of the other side of it now? Are you starting to see change?
Raw materials, a couple of raw materials are starting to drop back a little bit, but nowhere near what they were before COVID.
Yeah.
So we are improving. We haven't traded at a loss, which is one thing we're significantly grateful for. But so we've got through that period, and now there's plenty of scope to reinvest and drive and grow the business.
Talking about driving and growing the business, what's the future hold for the business? Do you see further expansion? You mentioned before that you're almost at capacity.
Yep.
I mean, you're a serious company now, but to be as big as you are, but also recognise the limitations of your ability to be able to produce to meet demand, is there room for growth?
Yeah, of course. It's not like we're going to be looking for double-digit growth every year, for the next 10, 20 years or whatever. That's not sustainable. So for us, it's very important on what we do, making sure we refocus our range and be as efficient as we can as a manufacturer, because there's no point adding 100 SKUs to the business and then compromising our ability to supply and all those sort of things. So, we're really selective in what we do and how we do it. First, it's got to be beneficial in some way to the environment, and then obviously consumers are going to want to have a need for it, and then the challenge is finding a way for the retailers to make the margin that they need to support it, and for us to be able to produce it without making a loss. So,
and outside of having a great product, how much do you think of the environmentally responsible part of your branding gets consumer buy-in? Do you find that is one of your key selling?
That's what drives our loyalty. Almost all of our brands have probably the highest loyalty in their categories, and it's consumers obviously have been on a long road and journey with us over the last 30 so years, and so on. So they have an expectation of us, and we can't afford to compromise our values and all those sort of things. So we always meet that expectation. So yeah, we love what we do. We love our products, and we hope our consumers do too.
So you've got an amazing brand, and you obviously drive an incredible company. And being here now, it's more evident than maybe previously just how big the setup is. Something that I love is that you've got a business, you generate a good income, you're environmentally responsible, which is good. And some might say that, there's a lot of companies now that are trying to do that because it's good for their brand. But what is more impressive is this socially responsible position that you take as well. And that's why I'm interviewing you today, because what people may or may not know, probably do know, is that you've got a great brand. What a lot of people don't know is the incredible work that you do in the philanthropic space. I know that you're not necessarily super comfortable talking about this bit of the journey, but it's certainly something that you should be recognised and celebrated for, because what we find is a lot of people in business, or a lot of people in the media in general, they get all this attention, and whether it's good attention, bad attention, brand recognition, there's always an agenda to push, but what you can't push is your socially responsible or your philanthropic path that you take in life, because it's just not something you do. So that's what basically I'm here to do today, is to push or try and find out from you where this incredible philanthropic journey started. Because I've read bits about where it started with a trip to Nepal and a couple of other things. We'll talk about that. But did it start before that? Was the old man always fairly philanthropic?
The old man still is. He'd give anything to anyone, They just have to ask him. So he's always been that way. Probably the most generous person I've ever known. But like most people, it's knowing where what you give is going to have the greatest impact.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest challenge, because the thing is, you can't just have something where you have every man and his dog coming to you, because you may give to them once but not again. So you have to find something you're incredibly passionate about and believe in fully to be able to continually, sustainably give them money every month, every year for the rest of our existence or whatever.
So just some of the foundations that you support: the School of St Jude, Reaching the Unreached, Cambodian Children's Fund, Hamlin Fistula Ethiopia, Free to Shine, the Jane Goodall Institute in Australia. I'm sure there's more. Where did it all start for you, mate? I've read that you started. Well, for you, it started on a trip to Nepal.
I went to Nepal with some friends, or with some people that I did some I suppose self-exploratory work with, and I just decided to go for a walk one day. We were in the jungle near Pakahara, I think it is, and stumbled across this orphanage and sort of all these little lovely kids running around and so on, and didn't think anything of it, and then went back to base or whatever, and then it started graining on me, and I thought, you know what, these kids are walking around, they got no shoes, they got, walking around in rags and so on. So I went back and I wanted to meet with the organisers or the managers of the orphanage, and I went and I had a chat with them. I said, look, do you guys need any help with funding or anything like that? And they said, look, we're funded from a particular church in South Korea. And I said, okay, can you give me some details and I'll follow up with them, because I'd like to get involved and help all these beautiful kids, because they were just amazing. Some of the poorest kids around, and they're climbing all over you. They're all got their arms around each other, and the love they had, because all they have is each other. And that was just incredible and, sort of thing to see. And so anyway, so I contacted the church and they said, no, we're not interested. Sorry, we don't need your help. I said, okay, no worries. So I just left it at that and went back to Australia, and it was a couple of months later, Mum was reading a book, and it was a Reader's Digest book, and it had an article on Scott Neeson and CCF, and she said to me, I think I want you to go and meet with this guy, because I told her about the church and that orphanage and how they didn't want any help or whatever, and they were self-funded, and to me that was an orphanage created to create awareness for the Catholic Church or Christianity or whatever it was at the time. So they weren't there for the kids, they were there to spread their religion. So I said to Mum, all right, I'm going to fly to Cambodia. I'll send him a note, tell him I'm coming. And went over there and spent a couple of days. And then the guy I was working with said, I think you need to meet Scott. And, okay. Because you sound just like him. And so the next day I met up with Scott, and we were sort of sitting talking, and we were supposed to be there for half an hour, and we were talking for 4 hours, and just an amazing guy, his journey, and being, I think he was a president of 20th Century Fox at the time or whatever, left his job, started this orphanage, and so he said, right, tonight we're going to go for a walk, and I'm going to show you what it's all about, and took me down to Stingman garbage dump. And that was the most profound thing that's probably ever happened to me. You walk around, I've got young kids myself. I had young kids at the time, they're grown up now, but you see 2 and 3 year old children with burns all over their feet, and from when they're there picking plastics and so on to survive, to use and sell as recyclables to Vietnam and so on, and the dump generally sets fire to all the rubbish, so the plastic melts and they're walking in it, and it's just horrific to see these kids with burns and knowing there's no running water, there's nothing there for them, and that's how they survive. And I thought, wow, this is something we need to get behind 100%. So then we went, obviously I spent some time with Scott and the team, and went and seen the schools and the transition from these kids on the dump site into these schools. And I saw this 7-year-old girl typing at 40 to 50 words a minute, and just their hungerness to learn. That's all they want to do is learn so they can get a job and support their family and so on. And I thought, we've got to get behind this. So we went shopping, and we bought 13 computers. And I said, what else do you need? He said, needs a bus. Need a bus. We went and bought a bus, and I said, and what do you need? And this was, I think, 2000 and 2008, just roughly around the time of the GFC, and he said, look, I've lost a lot of funding from America and so on, from businesses that aren't doing well. I said, well, how much do you need? And he told me, I thought, oh, wow. I said, okay, I'll find a way to make it happen. So I went back, met with the board, met with mum and dad, and I said, look, there's 1,500 kids there, and they need to eat to survive, and they need to be educated. I said, this is what it's going to cost. And I said, okay, just do it. I said, all right, this is our commitment to you as long as we exist.
And I don't mean from a financial perspective,
Yep.
but what does that commitment look like today? Do you still get over there? Are you still involved in doing that? I mean, I know that's how it started for you.
Yep.
Are you still involved in that now?
Yeah, with CCF and everyone, yeah. Yep, Scott's coming over in October. I haven't been there for a few years. I think I took my oldest son and mum and dad and my sister and so on over, I don't know, 2017, 2018, I think it was. So, you have to be involved in some way or another, whether, you're meeting with them here or there or whatever. It's important to maintain that connection so you can understand that, they're always doing the right thing. The downside with supporting smaller NGOs is, you go to India, 95% of them are run by the mob or mafia or whoever. They're corrupt in some way or another. So it's very, very hard to find legitimate, honest NGOs that are really destined to do something great. And I find it's about the individual that's behind it, whether it's Gemma, Scott Neeson, Nikki at Free to Shine. We back individuals who we believe in that can make change in the world. And, like the Reaching the Unreached, Father.
What do they do?
They run an orphanage as well, but for the first 5, 6, 7 years, I think we started supporting them. We were building regional housing. So every year the monsoons would come in India and most of the housing was in clay and straw huts, which would get washed away every year. So they'd have to go borrow the money to rebuild them every year, and that'd make things extremely difficult because they'd have to pay more than what they probably earn. So Reaching the Unreached, we'd go and build proper brick homes with steel roofs and so on that'd last forever. So I think we built like 1,500 homes in that time for them.
Making a massive difference.
Yeah, and then they said, right, we're going to get you back to supporting the orphanage itself and so on. But they still do housing, but it's obviously not needed as much now, rather than, the orphan children.
Yeah, and I certainly don't want to be discouraging of people that donate money to the big foundations, because at the end of the day, ultimately they're giving and these big foundations are helping. How much control you have over where your money goes or what it goes to. I think that some people are really time poor. They want to feel like they're invested and involved, and they give money, and that's fantastic.
Yep.
Someone that's involved on your level, how important is it to have control or ultimate control over knowing exactly where your money's going?
Well, you got to be passionate and you got to believe in it. And I was saying, we give to love, so we love to give. So for us, it's, I call it God's money. It's if you're not passionate about the cause, you'll only do it once or twice. But if you're passionate about supporting these kids through a lifetime, and then the next generation coming through, you'll do it forever. And for us, and the impact that it's had on our business, and the reason why I wanted to start this whole journey was the fact that the business needs to be bigger than itself, as far as its reason for being can't just be about profit. It's got to be doing something better for humanity or whoever on the planet. It can't just be about itself. It's too self-serving. We'd get corrupted by greed and all those sort of things. And so, to me, it's about what our business can do more than what it can earn is probably more important. And that, it probably gives me a bit more sort of confidence, because I know the universe supports us when we need it. And whether it's, we lose a couple of good people, suddenly we'll get even better people, and I think if the cause is greater than your own, you'll always, get the support that you need to make it happen.
Is this just an ethically and morally right path that you take, or does faith play a role in this? Or where did this amazing, inner struggle? I asked before about what you were like growing up and
Yep.
mentors and all that. I mean, it's pretty rare that someone has the ability to be able to run a business and then convert on a philanthropic level like you. I mean, you do amazing work. Where did it come from? Was it just literally that these trips overseas and what you saw changed you?
Well, I think, my dad would never do bad by anyone, and he always ingrained in us as kids. Never burn a bridge, never do the wrong thing by someone. You'll only reap what you sow. And Mum was the same, So, and like my parents had a really, really good friendship group around them of really, really good people as well. And I knew when I was letting them down, I was letting them down as well. And these are people that I really respected and so on. And that's probably what sort of changed my whole focus and philosophy on life. But,
You touched on reaching the unreached and the Cambodians Children's Fund. I'm Free to Shine, the Jane Goodall Institute. What are some of the other things that you're involved in? Because I know you're equally passionate about all of them. You've got this mantra here that it's not about giving once, it's about continuing to give and supporting these foundations long term. How do you support some of these other foundations? I mean, you're obviously very hands-on.
Yeah. Well, like with the Hamlin Fistula Institute, the work that they do is essential, for some of these women that have children so young, they're shunned and thrown out of the community because they have issues and so on, and a small operation can fix that. And so you're changing these people's lives that are normally be thrown out of a community and so on, and they need support, and that's what we're here for. And there's no point. It's like me. There's no point me going to CCF or going to Cambodia and say, listen, I want to help raise and educate the kids, because they've got people there to do that. They've got locals there to do that. It's my job to provide support and funding so they can sustainably do that. So, and that's the thing, that you hear that word about, what do they call it? When they go tourism on, what do they call it? When people decide to go to places like that to spend their holidays, going to help charities and so on. I said, well, the best thing they can do is send them a check. Go there, enjoy their country, and then send them a check every month, because ongoing support's what they need the most. And to see, CCF's a good example, because his outreach program, it's gone beyond kids now. They have the granny program where they look after all the grandmas. And they've got a health centre now. They've got they've built an entire school, all on the Stingmanshay site and so on. So they've changed an entire community. And like with Nikki, the work that she does protecting young girls from being trafficked into not so nice places and so on. They need resources. They need people to go out and say, hey, we need to get you to school. We need to keep you off the streets so you're protected from this sort of thing.
And I know you do a huge amount. Is there enough getting done? Are you seeing real change over there?
I mean, look, compared to the money that comes into that country in aid and things like that, it's fairly frustrating that they still have such a high level of poor there. But there's definitely, the government's getting a lot more supportive of Scott and what he's doing and all those sort of things. So it's definitely changing in the right way, because he's showing the example. Hey. These people on the garbage dump, they're not rats, they're not mice, they're people, and they can become leaders. And that's what we're seeing. Some of those kids are now at university and gone to work in restaurants and live very productive, successful lives.
So I guess that's a real change that we talk about.
Yeah. Well, I'm seeing some of those kids, I had crawling on me when they were 3 or 4 years old, and now they're grown up and in the workplace themselves, and that's the change you're seeing. Look at St Jude's and Gemma. I mean, she's an absolute amazing individual, just like Scott, and her story, I would love you to find that out as well, and how she started and so on, and she has some of the top students in the whole of Tanzania now, with the schooling program that she has. And I think that every year they're expanding the amount of intake that they can have and the size of the school and so on, because of the success.
Do you get back there often to see the change that you're creating?
I've never been to Tanzania. I meet with Gemma every time she comes here. And that's one thing I've promised her that I'm going to do. But every time I go to do it, something happens. Yep. And but I have to get there. Yep.
One thing that I would imagine from the amount of philanthropic work that you do, I mean, you do this because you genuinely want to help other people. But there's a real inner peace and an inner joy that comes from helping people as well, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
Like, people probably don't understand that the joy of the recipient is often not as great as the joy of the person that's giving, and to be able to get over there and not only just send money over there, but like we talked about before, to be able to see the change and to see the difference it's making. It's an amazing journey.
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably my biggest criticism of the corporate world. They generally get involved with charities so the charity can advertise to the world that they're involved with them. So there's an exchange there. It's promotion versus, support. For us, the exchange is they make us feel good about ourselves. They give our company a greater purpose. They make our employees understand and know that they work for a business that actually cares for more than itself, if you know what I mean. And so that's the exchange we get for giving the love out to those people, and that's why we love doing it. Yeah. Because the more we do it, the better we feel. The better we feel about the business, the more motivated it makes us to create a bigger and better business, so then we can do more. And, one of my goals was, we go to places where we don't think anyone else will go because they're the ones that need the most support. So, I sort of always had in my back of my mind, by the time I retire and exit out of this business, we're in as many third world countries as we possibly can be. And unfortunately, a lot of those are pretty scary places to go to, but you have to be, brave and bold and go where no one else will to find those people that need that support, because they're out there. Those charities are out there. Those people that want to help the unhelpable are there. So
before we talk about what the future of your philanthropic journey looks like, something that I don't want to embarrass you by, but I need to bring it up so that the people listening can understand that you mentioned before about big corporation donating purely for brand recognition and having their brand out there. You were thrown under the bus for today by your wife. This was something you were quite uncomfortable about doing. I mean, your cause is real. This is not about the corporate recognition for you. This journey you're on is life-changing.
Mm-hmm.
And mate, that's an absolute credit to you. Like, the reason that you do it is for all the right reasons, and there's so many people that are in a better place because of the work that you do. So, mate, thank you for doing it. One thing I wanted to touch on, and just because she's a bit of a hero of mine, the Jane Goodall Institute, what's that about?
So obviously she's a conservationist. She has been for a very, very, very long time and does incredible work. One, highlighting and educating people about what actually is happening to chimpanzees and other ecosystems and so on. So she's just someone that obviously is a hero to me as well. And but yeah, no, that's
Have you met her?
No.
Not yet?
No. I follow her, but
we're going to make that our mission. Okay?
I wouldn't even know what to say to her.
She was actually on a mate of mine's podcast recently, so we're going to make it our mission.
Well, last time she was in Australia, Nancy, my commercial manager, and one of our other staff members, I was away, so I couldn't go. And I would have had the chance to meet her then. But she's amazing.
What does the philanthropic future look like for you?
Well, hopefully to do more as we grow and get better. And there's some countries I definitely want to go to have a bigger impact and find more charities that are deserving of support and needing of support and so on.
Yeah, and at the end of a podcast, I like to usually do some quick fire questions, but I actually want to do something different with you today. Your moral compass is very much aligned in the right direction. You're a brilliant person. I've read some things that you've written down, and instead of quick fire questions, I just want you to chuck a quick comment about your own statements. Never compromise your values or the ethos of your business and have something greater than the need just to make a profit. Explain, extrapolate on that for... is that one of your core values?
Yeah. Yeah. Don't make something for the sake of making it. If you're not passionate about it, it's not going to survive. It's funny. Like for us, I always used to say to the team, don't produce a product out of desperation. Produce a product for inspiration, and so on. So yeah, and don't do it for the sake of making money, because you just mainly you could potentially hurt another company that really needs that business to survive. So unless you can do it better and make it different, don't bother.
Yeah. The next one speaks for itself, but it's something that resonated with me. Look after your staff and acknowledge their contribution. You're only as good as your team, aren't you?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're a sports team, if you're an organics company. I mean, you're only as good as your team, unfortunately. I think post-COVID, that's something that a lot of companies are struggling with at the moment is retention and recruitment of good team members. You've obviously got a really good team here.
Yeah, and it's just showing the loyalty when they need us to when they need us to support them, we've got to, support them. And, there's been a lot of occasions where, illness or death and so on in families sort of happened to some of our people, and we've just said, go and do what you do. One particular case, we had a lady here, she was our production supervisor, she'd been with us for 20 years, and her husband got cancer, and said, don't worry about whatever, just go and spend with him and we'll look after you, or whatever it was. And to me, if you don't show them the loyalty, then they won't show it to you. You got to show them that you care about everything, about their lives as much as they should about the business that they work in. And, when opportunities present themselves to do that, you don't question it, you just do it.
There's this incredibly beautiful, empathetic and kind thread right throughout your views on a lot of things.
Yeah.
It's good. No risk, no reward.
Yep.
Whilst all risk has to be calculated, those who sit back and stop innovating end up deteriorating.
Yep. That's come from my dad's side of it. Because he was always far riskier. I remember he bought an Aoki blow moulding machine, and he bought it with a multi-purpose bottle tool, and we weren't even in cleaning at that stage. We were only in laundry and dish. And I said, what are we going to do with this machine? He goes, that's your problem. Now you've got it, you're going to be hungry to go and fill it. So go and make some product and fill it. And
the next one, have faith in yourself and your instinct. That's something I would imagine's been in you from day one.
Yeah.
To be able to take the sales to the next level like you have and drive this business.
Yeah.
Is that faith in yourself?
Well, it's more, how could you put it? I'm far more guts than intelligence. I'm not an intelligent person. I don't pretend to be, but I really follow my gut and my heart, if you know what I mean. That's what steers our direction or my direction or whatever.
Yeah, a few of these tie together as well. Like when you say faith in yourself, like mentioned before, your empathetic approach to people and the way you treat your team,
yep.
I would imagine, and treat your customers would have a huge amount to do with the success of your brand.
Yeah, well, Woolworths and Coles, they're the reason we survive. Without them, we're nothing.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, from our case, in a lot of cases, we have to put their needs ahead of ours, and Dad always taught me customer is king. We serve them in order for us to be served ourselves. So they have to come first. We have to, yeah. And I've got so much gratitude to both those businesses and Metcash and all our customers, because we just don't survive, and we couldn't do, and all the things that we do with our charities, and so we couldn't do without their support. That wouldn't exist.
All the
So
flow-on effect.
they should get as much recognition for what we do as what we do.
Yeah, in saying that though, there's a lot of brands that are on Woolworths and Coles shelves that make a lot of money and don't give a lot of it to charity. So
yeah.
It's absolutely about you and the family and your vision, and you to be congratulated for that. The last one was have a trusted group of good managers whom you know well and make sure they're aware of what you're trying to achieve. How have you gone with that post-COVID? I mean, have you managed to keep the team together?
Yeah.
Yep.
We have I have a very close core group of senior managers. Like there's pretty much 4 of us that run the company. And Nancy's been with us for 30 years. Matt's been with us for almost 20, and Amir's been with us for 13. And these guys I can trust with anything. I know there's no agenda, there's no politics or anything like that. It's just whatever's good for the company, that's what we do. And it's been hard because I've tried to build a second tier of management in the past, bringing in general managers and so on before. But the first thing I want to do is get rid of all the good staff we've got and bring in their own and put their own sort of spin on the company. And that's against, our values and what we do and how we work. And so yeah.
Is this future success of this business very much you being here and staying hands-on?
I wouldn't say it's all. No, I think if something happened to me, I think we've got to. Those 4 people can easily steer the company forward. That's where the brains is. Or the brains are, I should say. I just steer the direction and so on.
For listeners that are listening that want to engage but don't know how do people engage? Have you got a foundation that they support, or do you direct them to the charities? How can we get people to help you push the cause?
Well, anyone who wants to get involved with our charities, I mean, they're all on our website or so on. And someone just
What's the website?
naturesorganics.com.au.
Yeah, perfect.
There's a list of them.
Yeah.
Just go and get involved with them, because honestly, they're just doing incredible work. It doesn't matter who they are. Out of all those charities, pick one that you believe in and get behind them.
Yeah. Mate, it's been really nice for me today that you've acknowledged that maybe you're not an intellect, but you're a really hard worker.
Mm-hmm.
You've certainly got an incredibly high EQ. You do wonderful things. And on behalf of all the people that you help, mate, it's a massive thank you to you and your family and your team here. Like you said, it's a team effort. You do incredible things. Jump on the website, have a look at what you do. Thank you for your time today, and I'm glad your wife made you do it.
No worries. Thanks, Andrew, and thanks, Trina, for making me do it.
Thank you, buddy.
Good on you.